Okay, folks, thanks for joining us. We're going to give it a couple minutes to let people filter in and get settled before we get started today. The chat is turned on. Feel free to say hi. Let us know where you're calling in from.
Hello, everybody.
Other folks in Europe. All of our presenters today are in Europe, the UK.
Yeah, very European panel.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, Switzerland is also not technically Europe in like the EU sense, but very much mainland Europe geographically.
That's true. Hi, everybody. Hello, Peter. Hello, Monica. Hello, David. Dave. Welcome to the webinar. Hi, Geoffrey. Hello, David. How are you doing?
Oh, hi, David. Your blog post is starting to look really good. Like, I haven't seen the second round of reviews yet, but I'll get to it. Oh, hi, Victor.
Hi, Victor.
Hey, Victor.
For folks just joining, we're going to give it maybe one more minute before we get started here. Victor, good to see you again. I have one question for folks who have joined us. All right. We'll give everybody a minute to answer that, but I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. We're a couple of minutes in. I think we'll still have a few folks joining, but we'll go ahead and get started. Before we dive into our content today, I want to go through a little bit of community update, just give you a sense of what's going on in the Airflow project. But if this is your first time at one of Astronomer's webinars, welcome. We're very happy to have you. If you're a repeat attendee, I've seen a few of you in the chat. It's great to have you back. Lots of exciting stuff to cover today and lots of stuff going on in the Airflow community. So as always, want to highlight a couple of upcoming events. We've got some very international Airflow meetups going on, which is really great to see. So I'm going to call attention to those. There is, I believe it's the first, or at least the first in a while, meetup in Sao Paulo that's happening today. That might be happening very shortly, I think, in the time difference. And that one actually did fill to capacity. So if you're in the Sao Paulo area, definitely be on the lookout for more of these. There's a very active community there. There's also another meetup coming up in Warsaw in a couple of weeks. So if you're in that area, I will throw a link to that in the chat. That's going to be at Google's office. So those are a great way to get connected with your local Airflow community and learn about how people are using Airflow and what's going on in the project. As always, another great way to keep up with the project is join the Airflow Slack. I will throw a link to this in the chat. That's a great way to get your questions answered, share what you're doing with Airflow, keep up with things in the project. You can reach us in the Airflow Slack, so definitely join if you have not already. We have a couple of content spotlights today. Given the nature of our topic, I think we have folks that are both more on the business side, our team leads, as well as more on the DAG authoring side, actually writing code for DAG. So for those folks who are more technical, we have a new guide on running tasks in isolated environments with Airflow. This is a really common thing that comes up. There's a lot of great options for you. So we'll throw a link to that in the chat. We also have a new report from Forrester on Astronomer's business impact for those folks who use our managed Airflow service. So again, more on the business and business side, may be interesting to folks, and we'll throw that link in as well. Tomorrow, if you want to go to the next slide. Next thing I want to bring up is the Airflow Summit is announced. Dates are set. The CFP is open. We would love to see you there. Last year's was really fun to get to see folks in person. This year's is going to be in San Francisco. One upcoming date that is coming up really fast is if you are going to submit something for the CFP and you are outside of the US and need a visa to travel, that deadline, I believe, is March 11th. It's next week. So that is coming up really fast. Even if you're not going to speak and you are just interested in coming, but you're coming from outside of the US, now is a great time to get that visa process started. We want to make sure you can make it over for that. So
It's
we're
the
all
10th-year anniversary for Airflow as well, so you guys should come. It would be
yes.
big this time.
Yes, great for throwing that. Thanks for throwing that in there, Kaxel. Yes, very exciting year for Airflow. So it will be a great event. We would love to see you all there for sure. All right. Slide. We have a free offer for everybody who joined us today for a certification for Airflow fundamentals presented by our lovely Mark Lamberti, who is with us on the call today. Mark did a great course and developed the certification. So it's a great thing to put on your resume. The learning materials are free. And we have the code for you so you can take the exam as well. Again, I'll throw all of this in the chat later so you don't have to copy it from the slide. Okay, I think that is it for my community updates. So a couple of bits of housekeeping as we go through today. This is being recorded and you will receive a link to the recording of the event after the webinar is over. So if you want to rewatch, share with your colleagues, any of that, you will have that available to you. The chat is open. You can use that or the Q&A for any questions you have. Please ask them. We have a great panel of folks on today to talk about Airflow trends and insights, which we're very excited about. And we would love to answer any questions that you might have. So throw those as soon as you have them, again, in the chat or using the Q&A, and we will get them answered. Okay, and I think that's it from me. So I'm going to hand it over to Tamara, who's going to go through some results from the Airflow survey. And as you've probably noticed, we have Mark Lamberti and Kaxel who are both very active in the Airflow project. We're super excited to have them here. Very lucky to have them adding their insights. So with that, you guys, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kenton. And thanks to everyone who joined. I'm super excited for this topic. And yeah, it's a little bit different than the webinars that we've done previously, because today we're going to talk about Airflow in its entirety, specifically the 2024 state of Airflow, the trends and insights that we have for what is upcoming. This will be the agenda. I will very quickly talk about what Airflow is and who Astronomer is with just a handful of slides. In case there are people joining who have never used Airflow before, I saw a few people said that they are considering Airflow, so you know what we are talking about. After that, we will start looking over the results of the Airflow survey. This is the survey that we sent out and promoted end of last year. So we're super excited about sharing some of the results with you. And throughout, Kaxel and Mark will comment on the results and also potential action items that we think you can take from these results. After that, we will talk about the future, discuss the key trends in the future. And of course, Kenton already introduced them, and I assume you know them, but just in case you don't, Kaxel is our Director of Airflow Engineering at Astronomer here, and also a PMC member, so someone in the steering committee of Apache Airflow, and of course, the one and only Mark Lamberti, our Head of Customer Education, and yeah, the Airflow person on LinkedIn. Yeah, very excited for you to be here. And as Kenton said, throw your questions in the chat. We will have dedicated time at the end for Q&A, but we can also answer questions throughout about the future of Airflow or other things you'd like to know. All right, very high level, what is Airflow? Airflow is the open source standard for workflow management. So it's being downloaded 24 million times per month now, which is just a wild, huge number if you think about it, how many people use Airflow. A subsection of those people that is growing every day are in our community Slack. And if you've ever have an Airflow question, no matter the time of day, that is the best place to ask your Airflow questions. There's a troubleshooting channels, or also if you just want to interact more with the community. The subset of people who are contributing is also growing. There are now over 2,800 contributors to the project. So there are a lot of people who are very dedicated to Airflow and have decided to contribute code. And of course, the ecosystem is growing. If you're writing Airflow DAGs, then you know about Airflow providers. There are now over 1,600 different modules. So operators, sensors, all of those little building blocks that make it easier for you to work with Airflow. Just in case you've never used Airflow before, what does it mean? It's a workflow management tool. If you work with data, you recognize some of these logos. Maybe you recognize all of them. And in any case, if you are a data professional, you will need to use different data tools, and you will need to perform actions in those different tools that need to happen at the exact right moment and with the right dependencies. For example, if you want to train a machine learning model, you can't do that before the data is there that you need to train it on. And some of these tools might integrate with each other, but not all of them. So what you really need is a piece in the center, and that is Airflow. So if all the tools are your musical instruments in a symphony, Airflow is the orchestrator. That's why we call it data orchestration. And the real cool thing about Airflow is that it can connect to any tool that has an API. So if you don't know which tool you're going to use in a year, especially in the ML space, where there's probably a tool coming out every single day, and you don't know which will be the one to use 2 months from now, you can still build all your pipelines in Airflow, and you know that you can easily integrate a new tool or switch out tools if you need to. That was Airflow. Usually you start out with Airflow locally. It's fully open source, free for everyone to use, but you might get at a point where you want to run this in production and where you want to run several Airflow instances. And Astronomer is the driving force behind open source Airflow, but we also have a managed offering. So who is Astronomer? We drive open source Airflow, and at the same time, if you ever want to run Airflow in production, we offer a service that makes this very, very easy and also adds a lot of productivity tools and other things on top of Airflow that will make your life easier working with Airflow. Yeah, we had this Forrester report recently that Kenton mentioned on the first slide that said it has over 400% return on investment. So if you are on the business side, or even if you're a developer who just wants to see what it is about, there's a free trial. You don't even need a credit card. Just go to astronomer.io/tryastro. All right, so that is Airflow, and you now know who Astronomer is in case you did not. First of all, I want to thank you for filling out the Airflow survey. We had over 800 people who responded, which is amazing. And this is super valuable for us at Astronomer. I know, especially for the DevRel community team. I know for the education team, they have looked at the results very closely and intensely. And of course, also for the Airflow developers.
Yeah, this is very, very important for us. So thank you again for filling this out. For an open source project, it is difficult to get the data of how the product is used. So you all filling this data out not only helps us understand the usage pattern, but also questions like what do you want in Airflow helps us figure out the roadmap for it. So thank you very much for filling that out, but also keep filling those things out as and when they come in. We have it every year, and do shout out to us on Slack or the dev mailing list if you had anything that is not part of the survey. So
yeah, well said. And I'm
Yeah,
super, yeah, sorry.
No, I was about to say this is really the best way for anybody in the community to make your voice heard, especially if you want to have, like, I don't know, if you expect some new feature, anything that you struggle with, or if you just want to give your your thoughts about Airflow, this is the best way. So don't hesitate to answer any Airflow survey, because this is how you will make ultimately the tool better, and so your life, your data engineering life, better. So.
Yeah, it's really important for us, and it helps us prioritize features and all sorts of things. Now, I will go over some of the results. There were over 40 questions in the survey, so we will not have time to dig into all of them. If you are interested in reading more of the results, there is an infographic that has more of the technical results, for example, which cloud provider people are using, available on the Airflow website on the survey. And if you are more on the business side, you might be interested in the State of Airflow report that takes some of these results and puts them in context, in a business context, but also in context with results from a different survey. All right, so let's start with the results. First, demographics, always the first thing in the methodology. Who did answer the survey? And this really just means we know a little bit more about you. Who are the users who are very engaged with Airflow and who are responding to our surveys? The first number I wanted to share is 59% of you are data engineers, which was something that we expected. But it's also interesting to think that this means that 41% were not. So there are a lot of different data professionals who are using Airflow. then we saw that most of the people who filled out the survey had less than 1 year of experience or 1 year of experience with Airflow. So these are people who are getting into Airflow today. And this is exciting for us because it means that people are still adopting Airflow, and it's really a growing tool. Like seeing this step ladder that we have between beginner, intermediate, and advanced is really the sign of a healthy project. Like more and more people are starting to pick up the tool. 15% who responded have more than 3 years of experience with Airflow, so are like really experienced people who can tell us all about the ins and outs of heavy workloads and running Airflow in production. A lot of the people worked at pretty big companies, and a quarter worked at companies with more than 5,000 employees. And this is also a statistic that I found really interesting. 11.8% had more than 200 other Airflow users in their company. So they could hold an Airflow meetup just inside of their company. So this really means that Airflow is not just a tool that one person uses, but many people can adopt in a company and get value out of. Lastly, we got 15% who follow community discussions and 13% that have contributed before. These are already great numbers of the people who responded, and I'm really curious to see next year how they compare, if we can get some more people to join community discussions and to contribute. Now, I said 59% are data engineers. What were other answers to this question? We had a lot of software engineers, we had DevOps engineers, solutions architects, different other data-related professions like data analysts, which were almost all new, which was interesting because this means that data analysts are now getting into Airflow. Data scientists and machine learning engineers, which is exciting, knowing that they are adopting Airflow for MLOps, and also analytics engineers and a couple of business analysts. Special little shout out here to the person who responded, a custom response, all of the above, because we have all been there and felt that. Yeah, that also made my day. And yeah, that also shows there's a lot of overlap between those roles, and Airflow exists in that overlap and can be helpful to all of these people. All right. Skipped over. I hope you didn't see that, but I wanted to ask you if you have a guess on how many % of people use Airflow already for MLOps. And in case you saw that number on the slide because it skipped ahead, I'm curious to hear from you if you've used Airflow for MLOps or if you've seen someone use Airflow for MLOps yet. Okay, Mudasa, I hope I pronounced the name right. It says 80%. Okay.
20.
2 dashes as a name, 20. Nibu, 10, 5, 30. That's interesting. Mehmet, 30. Jungkook, 60. Okay, 20. Okay, interesting. So there's a big range here. So that's very interesting. And the answer was 28. Of course, this was just a sample, but this is already a lot. Like MLOps hasn't been around. I mean, it has been around in some sense, but it's really started to grow in the last couple of years. And people are really growing with their ML use cases with Airflow. And this also means that they are running really critical pipelines with Airflow, like ML pipelines. Most of you will have been asked by someone in your business, are we doing AI yet? AI is the upcoming thing. AI and ML use cases are really critical. And the other thing that we see here is that there were also a significant amount of people who say that they use it for ETL, ELT related to business operations. Of course, the big number here, 90% people use it for analytics. That's the bread and butter of Airflow, and that's a great use case for Airflow. But also more than half of the people who responded to the survey said that they are also using it for business critical operations. So the pipelines that actually power their business compared to the pipelines that inform them about their business. And that was a really great statistic, and it really drove home the importance of Airflow in these companies. We have an action item here for you. If you want to unlock MLOps and business ops use cases, And we separated this out into for code folks and business folks, because we know we have different people joining these calls. For the more code-oriented folks, if you are interested, like you're an Airflow user, you use it for analytics, ETL, ELT, but you want to get into using it for MLOps and you're not sure where to start, we have a guide for you. There's the Airflow MLOps guide, and this guide walks you through the concepts that are important when using Airflow for MLOps, as well as available integrations. And at the end has a ton of resources, including a full reference architecture for you to clone and use and adapt for yourself. For the more business-oriented folks, we recently published an ebook called Accelerate AI with Apache Airflow that goes over how Airflow can fit into AI and ML initiatives. And of course, for everyone, we have recurrent webinars from our customers at Astronomer who sometimes also use Airflow for ML, and they talk about their very inspiring use cases. And if you have a business idea in mind that you want to build on top of Airflow, I highly suggest you join these webinars to get some inspiration. At this point, I wanted to ask both Kaxel and Mark, do you have a tip? Like, what is your one tip? A person who is listening to this and says, yeah, I kind of want to do MLOps with Airflow, what should I do?
What I would say is last year's Airflow Summit had a lot of talks around MLOps. So I'd say to check out not only Airflow's YouTube, but Astronomer's use case pages. Like some of those links you already have over here. But that coupled with some of the videos from last year's Airflow Summit, because they talk about MLOps use cases. So you might want to hear what other companies are doing with MLOps. So rather than talking in abstract of this is how you can do XYZ, they'll talk about how they solved an MLOps problem within their company, which is probably more valuable, at least for me. I think those are I can relate more to those sort of use cases. So I don't know, what do you think, Mark? What's your tip?
Well, I'm not I would say I'm not a MLOps expert, but what I would definitely do is to take a look at the open source project Ask Astro, because that will give you a really nice way to actually see a real world use case of machine learning in action. So if you don't know Ask Astro, basically it's a way for you can get answers to your questions around Airflow and Astro, and you have access to the code. So you actually, Ask Astro is actually open source, so you have access to the code and you can clearly see the architecture and what are the data pipelines that are powering Ask Astro. So it's a really nice way to learn about MLOps and LLM in general with Airflow. So that will be my tip.
Yeah,
I learned a lot thanks to it. Thanks to it.
I would double down on Ask Astro's source code. When we gave a presentation in London's Airflow Summit, we got so much interest because the code was completely open sourced and people looked at the code and it's like, hey, I'm going to use it in my company. Can I use it? And it's like, it's Apache 2 license. Go use it however you like.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. No, it's a gold mine.
It's an awesome project. And I actually did that. I copied it and made like a little tiny version just to play around with it of a different use case. And that worked great. So yeah. Okay. Now, if you do this, if we say we are someone using Airflow for ETL for analytics, and now you are growing out, you're starting a business on top of Airflow, you're doing MLOps with Airflow, you are in the great majority, because the people who start with Airflow, they grow with it. There was this question in the Airflow survey. That was, how have your team's use cases grown over time? And 44% said a lot. Another 38% said a little bit. So in total, 82% actually expanded their use cases of Airflow over time, which is great for us to hear. And also for you, if you have this idea, many people have done it before you, it's very doable. Now, I said before that people are building a whole business on top of Airflow in a lot of cases. Like, for example, if you have a service that makes, let's say you have music recommendations based on your browsing history. Not sure if that exists. If it does, you can build it. The idea is free. But if you have a service like that and you use Airflow to move the data of the browsing history to the model for it to be trained, use Airflow to kick off the model training, handle all of the MLOps, if Airflow doesn't work, then your business doesn't work. So this is what I mean by these really business critical business operation pipelines. And one of the other questions that we asked was, how important is Airflow to your business? And 48% said, if it's broken, there's a severe impact across the entire business. And this means people are really trusting Airflow with their businesses. So that was actually a nice response for us to get. And it also means that you can really do this and build a business on top of Airflow. Another 36% said that there's an impact on several teams if their Airflow breaks. Now, I saw this and I was really interested if this is different for small and larger companies. So I dusted off my pandas and plotting skills and managed to do this. And what you can see here is that it's actually very related. So on the x-axis, you can see the company size, so how many employees people said their company has. And for the companies with more than 5,000 employees, almost 90% said that Airflow is either very important or important for their business. And more than half of these people said it's very important. So this is also great to know. Very big companies place a huge importance on top of Airflow. Now, Airflow being very important for large companies, we were curious. If you want to share, you can also be vague. What happens to you personally if your Airflow is down? What happens to your job? It's probably not the best Monday if you come to work on Monday and it's down. Yeah, 10,000 alerts, yep. Samuel. Panic mode, yeah.
Yeah, panic mode is a great one. Of stress.
Yeah, war room, yeah. Yeah, coffee break, fire in the hole, restart everything before the stand-up. Ticket to astronomer.
Geoffrey, that's the best way. Always restart everything first.
Shut down, go on. Yeah.
That's definitely one option.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love all of these answers. And yeah, ticket to astronomer, that's one of the advantages if you're a customer. It's not just your problem, it's also our problem. And we do everything we can to solve it. And Mehmet said war room. Of course, at Astronomer, it's a bit different because we run Airflow for a lot of people. So if anything just looks fishy, there's already an incident and several people are looking at it. Upgrade just before the weekend. Yeah. Never push code on Friday. We all know that. Okay, thanks for all of your responses. Of course, what should never be down is the production deployment. And we actually asked, how many Airflow instances are you running in production? And over 48 people said that they run over 20 production Airflow instances. So there's some potential for something to go wrong in one of them. Most people just run one, which are the smaller companies, but especially for larger companies, your Airflow infrastructure can become pretty big. And we didn't ask this fun question about what happens to you if Airflow is down this year, but we probably will next year. But it was asked in a different survey. So this is not the Airflow survey. This is from a different survey that's called the Gatepoint Research that also asked Airflow users. And these are some of their responses. And some that I want to call out is that 19% said that revenue-generating apps are compromised. So this is the case that I talked about earlier. What if your whole business is on Airflow and your recommendation system is broken? But also 11% that the reputation could be negatively affected and 9% that sensitive data could even be compromised. So these are high impact and potentially very costly things that can happen if your Airflow is down. Now, here the action item is pretty straightforward. You need a robust Airflow infrastructure. And if you are very good at Kubernetes and infrastructure, you can set that up yourself probably. But if that's not your thing, then we recommend that you should try Astro. For the people who are on the coding side, you can just sign up and take it for a spin. And for the people more on the business side, we have some demo videos, or you can also just contact us. I know we have a lot of incredible sales and field engineering folks who love to give personalized demos to people. Now, I'm just saying that, but Caxel actually has insight on why Airflow is robust. Airflow on Astronomer is robust and observable.
Yeah, so one of the things when you talked about in the last slide, right, where how many people run multiple Airflows. So Airflow is great when you are just running one instance, but when you run multiple instances of Airflow, it is difficult to see what's going on across Airflows, especially if you're managing a team running multiple Airflows. So having that observability and visibility around more Airflows, I think that's where Astronomer shines in very, very nicely, because of all the other infrastructure and security stuff that we do on providing those like IAM securities and security user groups and whatnot. That's one part of it. Second is because we have a lot of Airflow committers within this team and PMC members like myself. What we have done is we have built an architectural separation called Astro Hypervisor, which we have blogged about. So you can read about that on our engineering blog post. We can go directly to the Airflow metadata base and we can figure out what's wrong with your Airflow if things go wrong. It's a software at the end of the day, so things will go wrong because of either badly written DAG, because something else is wrong. Our job is to provide you with the observability around it. Like a good example over here is if you specify a worker queue in your DAG that does not exist. I have seen so many cases where users like, hey, everything is right. It should just work. But well, there is no worker queue with that. So what we do with Astronomer is we pop up those information to the users and allow them to like remediate it easily. So our assumption is things can break, but we'll do our best to either auto remediate it or provide enough observability that users can do something about it. So I think that's the biggest advantage compared to Cloud Composer and other services if I'm wearing my Astronomer hat.
Yeah, and this feature, I saw this feature. One of the first times I saw it was with the same error because I made a typo in my worker queue. So that was very great because you can click on details and then you know exactly where the error comes from. All right, so back to open source Airflow. How often do you interact with Airflow? Very curious. Like on average, if you think of an average month. Oh, wow. Okay. Every hour. Alexander is interacting with Airflow right now. Yeah, everyone like daily is the most common answer. Omnipresent. Yeah. Yeah, every hour can be like, I'm not sure if the first person was kidding, but that can be really the case if that is the main part of your job, monitoring, writing Airflow pipelines. Live and breathe Airflow. All right, yeah, you're absolutely in the majority there. Of the 800 people who we asked, 55% said that they interact with Airflow every day, and another 26% at least once per week. So this means we are part of people's everyday life. And I saw your comment, Mark, sometimes part of people's dreams. I have also before dreamed of Airflow pipelines. And this means that we are not just a part of a business, but Airflow needs to be good and a good experience to work with for people to have a good experience in their life. And we are very aware of that. So we have an action item here that is aimed at the people interacting with Airflow. We have recently done 2 webinars that are about best practices. One about best practices for writing Airflow DAGs, both for data engineers and data scientists, that helps you write DAGs that are more robust and easier to maintain. So the hope is that you have less panic mode, less things happen because your Airflow is more streamlined and more robust. And for people who are on the administrative side, who are managing Airflow teams, we have another webinar that is exactly about best practices for managing Airflow across teams. So these are the two webinars that we recommend to make your daily life better with Airflow. And wanted to ask again, maybe Mark, you can go first. What is your tip? One tip, I know you have many. How can you improve your daily Airflow life?
That's a great question. Honestly, I would say I would use the Astro CLI. Really, like, and I'm not saying that because I'm working at Astronomer. I truly believe that the Astro CLI is the best way to run Airflow. Honestly, you will save so much time just because you can run your Airflow instance with just a simple command. You can run your test. You have like all of the folders and files basically that you will require if you want to have a fully functional local. So that will be my biggest tip for sure. Use the Astro CLI, try it, it's open source. And I honestly, I've saved a lot of time before running Astronomer with the Astro CLI. So that's really my biggest tip.
Yeah, especially if you're using, if you're developing decks, it is very good for rapid prototyping. And like I myself use it apart from Breeze. If I'm not developing on Airflow itself, if I'm not writing an Airflow code, and I just want to test decks and stuff, then I'll be using Astro CLI for sure. Because yeah, you don't need to learn Docker for it. Astro CLI will wrap that away from you, so it's easy.
Yeah. I'm the example, like the living proof of that last sentence. I worked with the Astro CLI and Airflow before I had learned anything about Docker. That was my first contact with Docker, and it just worked. Like you run a command, you don't need to actually understand what is going. That came later. And you can also just test out new versions. Like if you can just spin up an environment in any Airflow version and test your DAGs. I really highly recommend this. Fully free, open source, everyone can use it. All right, so next we have 3 questions that are all about your wishes. And this is really the moment. We have a PMC member here, we have Mark here, where you can talk about what you want. And the first question is, which features would you like to see in Airflow? Customizable UI from Aldo.
Could you add more about what specifically you want to customize on the UI front? Column lineage with Cosmos. Nice.
Something to send over to the Cosmos team. Not sure how hard that is to implement, but
Hey, now we have support for open lineage in Airflow, so it shouldn't be difficult.
okay. Saying clear docs on how to set up Airflow and K8s. That's a big one. The Helm chart.
Yeah.
JSON Beauty, sure. That's a good one. True.
More flexibility with dynamic task mapping. If you want to elaborate, that we will read all of the chat afterwards. So even if we don't read out your question or don't get to it. Yes, Sesha. Astro CLI can be used instead of Docker. Like it works with Docker, but you don't need to know about Docker or understand or run Docker Compose. You just download it and then you run one command to get an example project and another command to start it up, and then Airflow is running.
Yeah, it's a wrapper on top of Docker Compose. So while it uses Docker itself, you don't need to know that lower level details. So you can spend your time writing decks.
Customize the variable passed in dynamic task mapping.
Hey, dark mode is my favorite one. We just had an internal Slack chat about the dark mode today. So more flexibility on data-aware scheduling. Wait for what we have in 2.9.
Yep.
Yep.
You'll be happy about 2.9. And my last comment before I go to the next slide, Abhirami, customize the variable passed in dynamic task mapping. You might want to have a look at our dynamic task mapping guide, specifically the section on the dot map feature. That might be what you're looking for. It's one of the lesser known little features, but there you can change the variables before they passed into dynamic task mapping. Okay, someone said it, DAG versioning. This was the list
Here
from
we
the
go.
Airflow survey. Was surprised it took that long, but I really
Yeah.
liked all of the suggestion. Almost half the people said DAG versioning. It's been requested many, many times, followed by all of the data awareness features, lineage, dataset support, and also multi-tenancy.
Yeah, DAG versioning has been the #1 ask since the last 3 Airflow yearly surveys. And well, I'll say with the good news that we just published 3 AIPs to add the DAG versioning support in Airflow. We took a stab at it in 2020. We weren't successful, but this time we are determined to get this in Airflow. So we have broken it down into three sub AIPs, and we have just published them day before yesterday. So it's very new. So this is very timely. This discussion and this webinar is very timely. And yeah, I just want to stress that because of those results, survey results, that makes it easy for us to prioritize. And DAG versioning is specifically coming out of Airflow survey results and the discussions we have been having. Like Mark himself asked me this in last year's
Sure.
Airflow summit. So DAG versioning is definitely happening. There's an AIP published by Jarek as well about multi-tenancy. Submitting new DAG externally via API. We are thinking of something similar, not exactly the same, but you will be pleased to know that one of the execution related AIPs of DAG versioning would allow you to get your DAGs from GCS or S3 or GitHub and stuff. So you might not need those things. So
Yeah, you see, like the results directly influence where Airflow is going. So it's great you filled it out,
Yeah,
and yeah.
Yeah, and I would add maybe for those who don't know what AIP is, it's an Airflow improvement proposal. And so basically, I strongly recommend you to take a look at the link that I sent on the chat, because if you want to know where Airflow is going, you will find all the the biggest improvements that Airflow will get. I recommend you take a look at this link because it's a gold mine.
yeah, the way AIPs work is before we add any bigger changes in Airflow, we need to write an Airflow improvement proposal, submit to the mailing list to have a lot of discussions around trade-offs, pros and cons, and then if we get approval, then we start building it. Because it's an open source project and the governance model is under ASF, that is what we follow, and that has been so far so successful. So that's why I will still say it again, that if you're interested in how Airflow is being developed, do subscribe to the dev mailing list. This is where all the discussions happen. And even if you don't have anything to say, like Mark was mentioning, do look at those Airflow improvement proposal. There'll be a lot of things to learn out of it, especially if you're starting your career out. There's a lot of important things, and just you learn a lot by just reading others' comments, others' questions and answers and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's very true. I learned so much by just reading the discussions between like PMCs and advanced committers, because I realize what they are thinking about and what they are considering. Especially with DAG versioning, you might at first think, well, it's easy, you just have several versions of your DAG, but no, there's so many things you need to think about and make decisions on and how you can implement it. And it's really also a learning experience. Okay, the next question. Similar, in your opinion, what could be improved in Airflow? So this is not specifically about features. In this question, we gave a list of different Airflow aspects, and people could just click which one they wanted to improve or also suggest their own. Bring you a little to type. You can also just say certain parts of Airflow, like we already had some suggestions for the UI. stacks organized in groups in the UI. That's an interesting one. Currently, you can just use tags, but there isn't really a grouping feature yet.
Yeah, I have heard that comment at least few times, but then the counter argument always was that we already have tags. Then what would be achieved with groups for UI? So don't know, warrants a discussion. So if you have thoughts around it, I will be happy to discuss.
Running DAGs inside another DAG. That was a thing in Airflow 1, but you might be interested in, we have a guide on cross-stack dependencies. You can actually kick a DAG off by another DAG, and then you can wait, like the parent DAG can wait until the child DAG has finished. So patterns like this are possible. Ah, okay, you know about that. As if it is a task. Okay, interesting. Curious to hear more about your use case if you want to share for us to read up later. Dependency management. Yeah, that's always if you work with Python. So these were the response of the people taking the Airflow survey. The most votes went to logging, monitoring, and alerting, closely followed by the UI, which makes sense. That's the part of Airflow you interact with a lot and where you have a lot of ideas, and also the technical documentation. And yeah, here we wanted to mention that some of these things have additional features if you use Astro, but there's also been some developments on the open source side. Double checking the chat.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just replying, but yeah, I do want to say that Brent, who is one of the Airflow committers and PMC member, is working hard to revamp Airflow's web server, rectifying it to allow us to lay down the foundation to do even more and better things. Yeah, like one of the features of Airflow 2 was around auto refresh and not having to press auto refresh. So that was just a small enhancement, but with Airflow, I'm not going to don't quote me, this is going to be recorded, but in Airflow 3, whenever that happens, we will have an even better modern Airflow UI.
Yeah, and for example, for alerting, there recently was the notifiers feature, and that opens up a whole new set of alerting. And I think
I
people
have
are
heard good things from it about it from Mark. Mark, I know you were telling me there's a huge number of integrations. How many are there?
I think 90, 95. So actually, like, that's a very good point. On notifiers, if you don't know about that, hear me out. With the notifier, you can use it to, if you use a notifier with Apprise, which is an open source project to get notified through many different systems, then you will be able to get notified from Airflow to more than 95 different services. So for example, if you Teams, you can do that. You want to receive an alert from Airflow to 95 different services from which you can receive alerts with Airflow just by using a notifier and a price. So take a look at that. That will solve all of your issues with notifications, and that's going to be so useful for you.
Yeah, it's a really fun one. When it came out, I sent alerts to a Discord chat, which may not be the thing that most people want, but you can use it with everything Apprise integrates with. So that's a huge alerting improvement that I think if you're one of the people who want better alerting, that's probably the way to go. And the last questions for Wishes, what would you like to see from the community? So this is a question for the whole Airflow community. What would you like to see more of? Okay, events in Latin. Events in Brazil. Yeah. Istanbul. Yeah. Lots of people looking for meetups. Yeah, we have a lot of meetup groups now on meetup.com. If there isn't one already, then have a look. And maybe if you want to organize one, you can always contact Astronomer and can see if we can help you. Like if you want to organize one in your office, in your location.
Yeah, if you see that there's no local meetup groups for Airflow in your area, and if you know that there is more interest about this, please do reach out to us. We'll help you organize one of them.
Yeah, definitely. And that was also the answer, like a third of the people answering this question said yes, more local meetups and events. Also, a lot of people said more guidance around best practices and examples and more virtual events and help with getting started. And yeah, we took notes on all of these and yeah, have a look out. We already did like the best practice webinars that was partially informed by this response. So we saw this response and had to decide on the next webinar topic, and it's like, okay, definitely do something around best practices. All right, the action item for all of these, like now you are able to directly talk about your wishes in front of Caxel and Mark. But if you have an idea tomorrow or in a week, you can be part of the Airflow discussion. So for the code-oriented folks, if you haven't already, join the Airflow Slack. For business-oriented folks, if you're an Astronomer customer, you can share your feedback with our team, and it also bubbles up back up into potential features. And yeah, the recommendation would be to watch an on-demand demo and see if that is something for you. And of course, for everyone, if you like these events or like to know about meetups, there's a calendar on Astronomer's website where we aggregate all of Astronomer and Airflow events that Astronomer is involved in, and you can subscribe to that calendar. And then you have the invites always on your calendar, and you don't need to remember to sign up for webinars, for example. Yeah, this is the bottom line from the survey itself. Airflow is up and growing. It's really a rocket ship. 81% say it's important. 87% have grown their uses. 82% interact with Airflow at least once per week. And one of the numbers I haven't shared yet and made me very happy, 92% said that they would recommend Airflow. All right, that was the current state. Let's talk a little bit about the future. We already teased some features and what's upcoming, but Caxel, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, so like I was mentioning, like we do want to tackle DAG versioning in the next few months itself. So we'll be working towards that goal. The proposal is out. We thought about it for a long time. So do look at proposals. They're very detailed, and we'd like to hear your thoughts. So either you agree, disagree, you have improvement suggestions and whatnot, please reply to the mailing list thread that we have about it. So that's about DAG versioning. Someone had asked around flexible dataset scheduling. In 2.9, we will have an option to schedule on one dataset or the other, like more advanced conditional logics. Like you can also schedule on dataset A or dataset B, schedule your DAG. You can also schedule on a time or a dataset. Like a lot of time it happens that you want to run your DAG regardless whether of a dataset being updated or not. So for that you can use time. But if you want to just run it on a dataset as well, you can run it on dataset. If you want both, you can use time and dataset both. But that would be from Airflow 2.9, which we are planning to release somewhere early April. First week of April is the current target. So look out for it. Plans for data awareness. We have got a lot of plans about data awareness. So I'll just tease it out that currently Airflow has some awareness about what you do with your task. We are going to add a lot more capabilities with lineage, with column level lineage, with different kinds of lineage, but also providing some insight about the metadata that a task can generate, visualizing them and whatnot. There's a whole slew of things that we are discussing and thinking about things. We'll share with the wider group in coming months. Yeah, and Airflow internal API. I think that there are so many AIPs that that were just published in the last week itself. Like 4 or 5 or 6 AIPs that were published. So rather than me going through all of them on this call, I would suggest joining this monthly town hall where the people who propose this Airflow improvement proposal will be talking about them itself. So please do join those monthly town halls to ask any questions about them, and do participate on the mailing list.
Yeah, the town halls are really, that's where you are at the source. Like the person who is writing the code is there and presenting, talking about their idea. And then you can really like talk about your use case and maybe shape what the feature will look like. So that's a very interesting place to be. And even if you're just listening, yeah, we're always there and we always look at it. And yeah, it's great if you join and give your input. All right. So one last slide here. This was kind of a webinar on the edge between things we talked about Astronomer and about Airflow in general. And this is because the two are very intertwined. Astronomer is the driving force behind open source Airflow. You now met Caxel, but we actually employ 8 of the PMC members and 16 of the top committers. So a lot of the Airflow code is written by Astronomer employees. And Astronomer is also a great provider of Airflow education. So we have 8,000 certified users now. If you haven't gotten the certification yet, there are no excuses. You now have free code. And 31,000 people or more now have been trained by our very own Mark Lamberti on Airflow. Yeah, that is just amazing.
That's a huge number. That's a huge number. And I'm so glad to see, honestly, like I'm so glad to see that. Like it's been 4 years now, I think, even more than that, that I've been working on Airflow and talking about what you can do with Airflow and so on. And I feel that seeing this huge number now and it's still growing, it's amazing. So honestly, like don't hesitate to go to the academy, to the Astronomer Academy. There is plenty of content here if you want to learn anything about Airflow. And yeah, just enjoy.
Yeah, the academy is how I learned Airflow. Like Mark's academy, the 2 courses, the 2 certificate courses were how I got started. So it's really the best place to learn. All right. Now we have 3 minutes left. We are about on time. We answered a lot of questions throughout, but if there are any more questions, now is the time. So there were quite a few answered already in the Q&A feature.
Yep, let's do that.
We'll throw the link to the Academy in the chat one more time, folks. Okay. Well, I think we've answered all of the questions. I know we're about at time, so I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate your engagement. This was a really active group, and we love to see that. As we said, your feedback really matters to the Airflow project, so thanks for showing up today. And engaging with us. And thank you to all of our presenters. What a panel. Was very involved in the Airflow project, and all of them joining pretty late in their day from the Europe side. So we really appreciate all of you. And yeah, folks, again, you will receive the link to the recording of this event shortly after it's over. And we hope to see you all next time. Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.
You all, bye.